Namaskar. Welcome to Vision of Asia Voice of Community on ITV Gold. It is our great pleasure to be connecting with you this Sunday. Every Sunday is special and we have relaxed partly and are getting ready to welcome a new week. Newness is still not the normal newness for all of us. Most of the events are still happening on the virtual orbit. In today's show, we have highlights from an event to mark Raksha Bandhan organized by the Consulate in collaboration with the Culture Tree. We will also have our special weekly segment this week with Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh, and we take a look at the American politics. There will be glimpses from the session organized by inspiring South Asian women talking about presidential elections 2020. India and Israel are friendly countries and have cooperated for several years in the field of medical also. A special symposium, India-Israel Cooperation in response to COVID-19 was organized recently. We will share some glimpses from that symposium. It was organized online, of course, and last week we celebrated Ganesh Utsav. How Gayatri Chetana Center in New Jersey marked it with worship of Lord Ganpati. That report will be a part of today's Vision of Asia. So all this coming up right after these short messages. Stay with us. We begin today's Vision of Asia with a special cultural story with a difference. Rooted in Indian culture, bonding between brother and sister, but also for the protection of soul, Rakhi is offered to Guru by Shishya, to deities, Ishta Devatas by devotees, and indeed, as we all recognize Raksha Bandhan with tying of Rakhi by sister on the hands of brothers. In return, there is a continued assurance of extending protection. These festivals need to be learnt in the modern context with some fresh interpretations also. Indian Consulate, being aware of this need, joined hands with the Culture Tree organization and a virtual Raksha Bandhan was organized. Here are some excerpts from that event.
My name is Anu Sehgal. Namaste, everyone. And we are here to celebrate Raksha Bandhan. This is a children's event, but it's also a family event. And everyone will gain out of it. We have some amazing people participating, and we will tell you about Raksha Bandhan. But firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Anu, and I am the founder of the Culture Tree, which is a leading New York-based organization that promotes cultural literacy about South Asia through language education and cultural programming. And with me today is Madhuri Kale from Magical Whispers and Surishta Sehgal, who has written a book along with her son. So we will have a full segment on both of them, and I'll introduce them fully. But firstly, I just want to start off by talking about Raksha Bandhan. So Raksha Bandhan actually originated from the Sanskrit term Raksha Bandhanam, where Raksha means protection and Bandhan Bandhanam refers to a bond. The term simply translates to a bond of protection. Indira's wife, Queen Sachi, referred to as Indrani in the Puranic texts, tied the thread of Raksha to his hand, which led the gods to victory.
So Magical Whispers was actually co-founded to bring stories, folk tales, and mythology alive through life-size puppets and shadow puppets. And we have actually opened the Kala Ghoda festival in Mumbai a few times. We have performed as a group on the World Puppetry Day. And I'm so happy to collaborate with Anu in New York. And we have done some amazing projects like the Holi, Krishna's Holi, as well as Ramayan. And our pet project, the Climate Warriors, which will be up very soon. So beyond that, in Singapore, we have performed on Goldilocks, which is an all-time favorite for kids. The real work in the last 3 months when COVID hit has been happening in India, where we have worked with a lot of NGOs, helping children understand and just spreading smiles, Anu. It's really the rural children who don't get access as much to stories or even to puppets. So that's what's happening these days. And I'm so excited to be a part of this Raksha Bandhan event. So thank you for having me.
This year on Raksha Bandhan, I'm really excited to be reading from my latest book, Amma, Tell Me About Raksha Bandhan. And I have a copy of it right here. And you can see Klaka and Kiki, the two characters, and they're here along with their cousin Maya, who comes to celebrate Rakhi with them. So let's get started. As you can see here, Klaka and Kiki have gone with their Amma to the bazaar, and they've actually gone to buy a gift because Rakhi is the next day and Maya's coming home, and they can see lots of exciting things. They can see lots of Rakhis. Some of them have a Spider-Man, some have Superman, then there's a Ganesha Rakhi, there's a Krishna Rakhi. So they finally buy their gifts for their cousin. They buy some books and candy, and the next morning they get up, they get ready in time, and they're eagerly awaiting for Maya to come home. And you can see the gifts are wrapped and ready, and there are some sweets on the table. And finally, the doorbell rings and Maya comes. And she's a little bit shy at first, but it doesn't take her long to start mingling around with her cousins. And they even have a selfie moment. And then, of course, comes the ceremony of tying the Rakhi, where Maya ties the Rakhi and gives the boys sweets. They feed each other, and they give her the gifts. And after that, as all three of them are huddling with Amma on a couch, they ask Amma, what does Raksha Bandhan or Rakhi mean? And why is it that a sister ties Rakhi on a brother? And so the mother explains that Raksha means to protect, and Bandhan is really a bond. So it's a bond of love where you love and protect each other. And they're quite curious about how it started. And she says, think of it as trying a friendship band. And it's not only a sister that you can tie Rakhi to. You can tie Rakhi to a friend, a mother, a neighbor. She tries to tell them all that. And then they want to know the story. So she says there are actually 3 stories related to Raksha Bandhan. And they're very excited with it because, of course, the more the number of stories, the better it is. So the first story is about Bali. Now, as some of you may know, Bali was a very generous king. But he also became very arrogant and he wanted to conquer the whole world. And you can see him here, he's conquering land after land. And people got really fed up and tired, and then they complained to Vishnu. And Vishnu was a bit sad. He said, I thought Bali was very generous. Now I'm hearing that he's actually become very greedy, so something needs to be done. And Vishnu says, leave it to me, I'll see how I can help. And there you have Bali in his court, and he's doing what is called a yagna because he wants to get even more powerful. And while this ceremony is going on, into the palace walks in this really short man. And Bali is a bit surprised. He says, hello, who are you? And he says, well, I was just passing by. I've heard of your generosity. And I've heard that you don't say no to anything. And I wanted to ask you for something. And so the king says, what is it that you want? And he says, I want land which is equal to the 3 steps that I take. And Bali says, oh, little one, are you sure? Because your feet are so tiny, your land won't be able to cover much. Ask for something else. Ask for gold, ask for silver. And then this small man, he says, don't hate that because I'm small, I'm not powerful. Let me just take the 3 steps that I want and I'll be happy with that.
In this week with Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh, we take a look at American politics in the context of recently organized Republic Convention. What are the issues? How they are likely to play out while voters go to cast their vote to select next president of this important nation. Here are insightful thoughts from Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh. And while you are following the political movement in America with the recent Republic Convention, how do you see, has it energized voters enough?
Well, I mean, it's very difficult to say because it's a virtual convention. So there is no balloon popping, or there is no confetti, or there is no shouting or cheering or whatever. So it's hard to say. But I think a lot of citizens are following that convention. Both they followed last week Democrat convention as well as this week Republican convention. I think so. And there are good speakers there. I mean, Nikki Haley and there was one black attorney general from I think he was from the Tennessee or somewhere in the South. He spoke very well yesterday, and of course, the State Secretary spoke yesterday from Israel, and that again created a little controversy. And of course, Mrs. Trump spoke, and I think she spoke very good. She made everything more humane, more humble, and more. It touched a lot of good. Feeling into the people, because she mentioned about Black Lives Matters. She also says that justice has to be done, but violence does not justify the justice. So and also she said about COVID-19. She also said about a lot of other things like unemployment and so forth. So her speech was kind of a little different than speech on day one, or even speeches on the previous speeches. So I think it's kind of balancing out.
Absolutely.
Now,
yeah.
what about
referring to Nikki Haley, sorry.
Ceremony showing the 5 immigrants taking oath. It's not illegal, but again, it's a advantage of taking location. So president is in White House, and he has all right to do that. So there's nothing, nowhere says in democracy or our constitution that president cannot have oath ceremony at White House. Because, for example, people are getting the very large awards, like even Nobel Prize or even Padma Vibhushan or any other awards. And sometimes people cannot go to the award ceremony. They go to White House, or they go to even in India, people like Farid Zakaria, when he got Padma Bhushan, he could not make to that ceremony because I was there as a Padma Shri. And then what happened is he went to, later on he went to President's Palace by himself, and they did a ceremony there. So that's not, that's legal. And that's so nobody can say that why you did this, why he didn't come to that event. So, I mean, this is a kind of controversy without much substance to it.
Absolutely. And now focusing on a few references highlighted by Nikki Haley, she said president is not always politically correct. She also said America is not a racist country. And continuing with that, most of the speakers didn't get into the depth of Black Lives Matter movement as much as First Lady touched. How do you see America at this point of time as an immigrant yourself in terms of racial equation?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, racial discrimination is a kind of is a historical thing, and it's going on for 200 years, more or less. And so still there is a racial discrimination. Still the people with their different color is seen differently. and that should not be there. And each and every citizen should be equal, and they should not be judged by their color of the skin, or the way they speak, or the way they dress. So I think it should not be there, and that's why I think probably Mrs. Trump tried to dispel the notion that Republicans are supporting racism, but probably not. But I mean, there is always some black ships in all the party where there is some racism is there, and we know that there is always subtle racism. We already experience ourselves. I experience myself. So that is, you can't deny that, and we should try to remove it.
Absolutely. But will everything reach to the table of President Trump in terms of voters' decision? Meaning, would you or any voter consider him responsible for everything that is not happening right as far as race relations are concerned? In that context, people pay attention to his own personal preferences and the way he has conducted in this context. Going post Black Lives Matter movement, though it continues in some way now, is it going to reflect in him losing his share of votes?
Well, I mean, of course, he may lose some share of votes, particularly from the immigrants, some black Americans, and so forth. And there is no way about it. But how much, we don't know, because at the end of the day, in any election, people vote for their wallet and their economic situation rather than all of the things what we always give importance to.
Now, moving towards another important aspect which relates to economy, and President Trump always took credit for being a powerful force in generating employment and with a very healthy market situation. But due to COVID, all that has changed. How do you see, considering that his approval rating or the recent polls that we see are not going in favor of President Trump?
Well, I mean, yes, we know that because of the handling of the COVID situation, he's losing a lot of support from the American citizens. But as far as the economy is concerned, I think still they are doing pretty well. Because, I mean, even in spite of all this, because they did a lot of money infusion, trillions of dollars into the economy, then also market is still going up. Everybody's asset is going up, everybody's 401k is going up, everybody's IRA money is going up. So we don't know how to measure the economic downfall. And of course, there's a temporary unemployment is high. But again, it is kind of double-edged sword here, because there are so many businesses are still not open. And those who are open, the people who are working at certain level, because they are giving so much benefit, so that incentivized people to go back to work. And because they make more money by staying home, rather than what if they go back to. So there has to be somehow should be balanced out in order to bring the unemployment down.
Absolutely. But moving to the last question for today's show, Dr. Sudhir, looking at the potential relationship which India will have with America under President Trump or President Biden, do you see some distinct difference in approach of these two parties, two leaders?
Yes, I mean, if you look at the historically, at least I can say for the last 50 years, when I'm here since early 70s, I can see that Republican administration is always pro-India in its action. Whatever reason is, I'm sure it's a self-interest of the America. But they are always somehow their work is a pro-India. For example, U.S.-India nuclear deal opening up the in '92, opening up the market, Indian market to USA. That gives a lot of economic boost to the India, and so forth. And Democrats are also good, but again, historically, if you compare, then I think Republicans are more pro-India than Democrats. And but Democrats also has a good quality that they always stand by human rights, any racial discrimination or any minority discrimination back home. So it's all kind of to and fro, or it's all plus and minuses. So only time will tell, and how the President Biden behaves, or how the President Biden has, what kind of advisors they have. Same thing with Trump, what kind of advisor they have, because at the end of the day, all the president acts according to their advice.
So I think that would be one of the factor which many Indian Americans would consider. But then again, it is a package of everything combined together. As we say goodbye from today's show, your parting words for our viewers, Dr. Sudhir.
Well, dear friends, I think it's a season for election now. In the democracy, this is the only power we have as a citizen to exercise our vote. And we must do that. Go out and vote. Doesn't matter who you vote, depending upon your choice. But you must vote and you must speak out. Otherwise, you will not get another chance in next 4 years. So we'll see you next week. God bless America. God bless India. Jai Hind. Goodbye.
As you are aware about the history of America, there were days or years when women in America didn't get a right to vote. But things have changed. Last presidential election, we had a women candidate running for the highest office of this country. This year, as per Democrats, the running mate for presidential candidate Biden is Kamala Harris, another woman. Republic Convention saw important speeches, including the address of Nikki Haley. How Republic Convention has made its impact, where we are in terms of the political flow in America. We heard from Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh, and now the chance to learn from inspiring South Asian women about the potential outcome and major issues in this election.
My name is Suchitra Kamath, and I am the president of this wonderful organization called Inspiring South Asian American Women, also popularly called ISAAW. ISAAW educates, empowers, and mobilizes South Asian American women to engage in civic issues and be more politically engaged. We are a 501c3 organization and a non-partisan organization, and we care about all the issues which impact the community and motivate women to bring about a change when needed. So 2020 is a special year in politics. While presidential elections every time matter, whether it is setting the policy or shaping the Supreme Court, but the consequences of this election will be very deterministic as to whether there will be something which will be fundamentally altering to the nation, in the sense like whether this government which comes up will be committed and be fair and unbiased. If we as voters repeat the mistakes that we made in the past election, then there's something fundamentally wrong with us as voters. So most people will be voting by mail this year, and the campaigns will look different because this year we have another special situation with the coronavirus, and then Kamala Harris, the Black South Asian American woman joining the vice presidential nominee spot. A lot of things are different this year. So discuss what these elections mean and what is at stake and what can we do about it.
There is still not going to be voting on a machine, except there are specific machines that have been set aside for the disabled and people who need specific opportunities to vote that can't, they can't have a paper ballot given to them. they're the only people who are going to vote in a traditional voting booth, and that's important for people to know. But we are determined in Middlesex County and all over the state to really make sure that everybody who wants to vote in this election gets to vote and their vote gets counted safely. The only other thing I would say is for everybody listening to this call, if you're in New Jersey, you can go on to the state's website, nj.gov.usa, and there's a site under the Division of Elections that allows you to put your town in, and it'll tell you, maybe not today, but within the next couple of weeks, it'll tell you exactly where, which voting locations are going to be open, because not all of them are. There's not going to be a need to have every voting location open if most people are going to vote by ballot. You can go onto that site and find out where the election boxes are, everything, the deadlines. I suggest that everyone listening to this call, and if you know people who aren't here, tell everyone you know. They can educate themselves very easily.
Big news. I mean, news cycle moves so fast, but Kamala Harris just this past week accepted the nomination as vice presidential candidate running for the Democratic Party, and she's the first Black and South Asian woman candidate to get to that position. Sadaf, you're a trailblazer yourself as the first female Muslim American mayor in the history of New Jersey. What does this moment mean for South Asian women and perhaps women of color overall who do want to run for office or pursue civic leadership positions?
Since I've been elected, a lot more South Asian groups and Muslim groups have approached me with, holidays, and can we get a resolution about our holiday, or can we have participation in an event about what we celebrate in our culture. And people would ask me like, oh, how come this group, we never heard about this group, how come they never came to us and told us about their holiday? And again, I said, well, they probably just feel more comfortable approaching me because I'll have some frame of reference for that. And similarly in the context of COVID, I'm the only non-white mayor in my county, and we have regular mayor's calls with the freeholders. They were daily at the start of the pandemic, and now they've kind of tapered to a little bit fewer of them. But on one of those calls, I mentioned that I had heard that some of the undocumented members of our community were afraid to go to the food pantries because they thought there might be some immigration enforcement at those sites. And there was some incredulity on the call that, oh, why would people think that? Like, that's not going to happen. And, I've never heard that. And again, I could say, well, maybe people just feel more comfortable telling me about this because I have an immigrant background. And so I might understand these fears more. So absolutely, I think representation matters. And so seeing Kamala Harris on that stage, for, one of the two major candidates from the major parties in our country with a high likelihood of becoming vice president of this country, I think really opens doors for people. It shatters glass ceilings. I think for young girls growing up now, that'll just seem normal.
You're watching Vision of Asia Voice of the Community on ITV Gold, and this Sunday, as we thank you for being a part of our extended family from ITV Gold, we continue to appreciate your patronage, support and love. As you are aware, Vision of Asia comes to you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursdays at 8 p.m. and every Sunday we bring a special weekly edition of Vision of Asia at 11 a.m. With thanks, here is the request to stay with us. We'll be right back after these short messages. India and Israel have closely worked on the defense area, as well as they are closely cooperating in response to COVID-19. And what are the major areas where these two countries are supporting each other in fighting this invisible enemy? An important interactive session on Zoom was organized, in which Ambassador of Israel in India as well as Consul General of India in New York participated. AAPI President addressed this session as well. Here are some highlights from this interaction about Indo-Israel cooperation in response to COVID-19.
I think that this event is a celebration of friendship between three great democracies. The world's greatest democracy, the United States of America, and India, the world's largest democracy. And we have a new challenger today, Israel, with already 3 election rounds in the last less than 2 years, and we're already speaking about the 4th one. So I think that at least we can challenge we can join you in the leadership for being a vivid and active democracy and a leader in the democratic world. But seriously, the special relationship between the 3 countries and nations are based on deep shared values of freedom and democracy, with a special role that we have, each country and each nation in history, that goes beyond any national or strategic interest. There is an additional component here, a significant contributor, especially to our bilateral relations between Israel and India, which is the long-lasting relationship between the American Jewish community and the Indian American community. The brotherhood between these communities, based on, again, shared values of excellence and education. We have a lot of doctors here, and I can speak about especially the role of the Jewish mother. I'm sure that the doctors could share and say that maybe there is. I'm sure that there could be the same could go also to the Indian community, I'm sure, and of course the value of pluralism, which these communities played an important role, not only in the establishment, but also the development of the Israeli-Indian alliance since 1992. I've been here for 2 years, and I can tell you that the relationship between the communities and the consulates are a very solid basis for these bilateral relations, at least here in New York. And I also want to mention, again, the role of organizations like the American Jewish Committee, and of course, it's the AJC's CEO, David Harris, in actually contributing, strengthening these bonds. The story that we'll share here with you today is, in essence, is what Israel is all about. And it's also, in essence, what India is all about. And it's also a central value in American Judaism, which is Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. And I want to thank you again for joining us today. And I hope this story will serve us all to strengthen even more the bond between our communities and the kinship between our countries. And I thank you again for hosting this event, and all of you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, as always, for your friendship. It's now my pleasure to welcome to the screen Ambassador RANDHIR JAISWAL, who should be on with us in a moment. Ambassador JAISWAL assumed charge of the Consulate General of India in New York just this past July. And so it is a pleasure to welcome you, Ambassador, to the tri-state area. It's really an honor to have you with us so early in your tenure here. And as I said, a pleasure and an honor to welcome you to the tri-state area on behalf of both AJC and AJC New Jersey. As you know, we have enjoyed a long and warm relationship with your consulate, including an annual Indian Hanukkah celebration at the consulate. And we look forward to continuing that relationship with you during your tenure here. So again, welcome, and we turn the floor to you.
There are 4 areas in which, and I'm sure Ambassador Malka would talk more about it, but there are 4 key areas in which we've gotten together. One, of course, is trying to give a helping hand to each other in the area of PPE kits. We supplied PPE kits to Israel when there was a need earlier during the year. And Israel, we were happy to receive ventilators from Israel for the state of Tamil Nadu when we needed them. The other, of course, important area, which is the topic of discussion today, is the area of diagnosis. This new testing capacity that is coming out of Israel has huge potential. to test COVID results within less than a minute, 30 seconds, as the case may be. We had a team which recently visited India. They've taken a lot of samples. It is an ongoing effort, but we are confident that with all the great minds that are there and with the commitment that we have for this relationship, for this friendship, we'll do better for ourselves and for the world at large. The other area, of course, where we are pooling our resources and our minds is how to develop new tools for forecasting a pandemic, or looking at or forewarning ourselves about the second wave of COVID-19. There, of course, new age technologies such as artificial intelligence are being employed, and we think there is a real possibility that we can do something good for ourselves. And of course, the fourth area is vaccine development. India today produces 60% of the vaccine of the world. There are a lot of efforts, global efforts ongoing to produce a vaccine for COVID-19. There are several therapeutic attempts also being made. Whatever happens, when you need the scale, India is there to support. We have a large manufacturing capacity, and when it comes to scaling up, I think the Indian backbone of the pharmaceutical industry, of the vaccine development industry, can come forward and support global efforts. So all in all, it's a happy story. It's a very innovative story. And I must tell you, when we were in India, Prime Minister Netanyahu had come on a state visit, and during his meeting with the president, we had served him Indian tea infused with olives grown in Rajasthan with the help of Israeli cooperation. It was very well appreciated. It had a different aroma, the aroma of Israel and India together, and it was very exciting, very innovative. This particular seminar and the effort that we are in right now, can 30 seconds change the world through a new testing capacity, has or will have and has the same excitement, the same innovation. I wish the effort, and to all our friends who have joined here, the very best, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much, sir.
Get the results because we managed to get all the objectives. It was a very ambitious operation to come here and within 9 days to take 20,000 samples. It's not something that you can do every day. It really needed a commitment and the dedication of both sides of scientists and all the other people that helped us to do this. It was a joint effort that was very successful. And as I said, we managed to meet all our objectives. I would like to mention that in addition to that, what we did with this special flight that came with scientists, we also brought, as part of our collaboration and strengthening friendship, we brought all the advanced medical equipment that was invented especially to fight COVID-19 in Israel using the latest technologies. So what we did, we got a list of the equipment and technologies that were used from the Ministry of Health. I myself went with experts to our leading hospital, Tel HaShomer in Tel Aviv, and all those equipments that were found useful and efficient were collected and brought here to India, and we shared them with AIMS Hospital, and whatever will be found useful will be upscaled to India. This is the way that we share between us all the achievements, the technologies, best practices that we do. And as mentioned before, we also brought very advanced respirators to India. Then the second shipment is now on the way. Another shipment, the first time we brought 83 advanced respirators to Tamil Nadu, but now more 122 from these advanced respirators are on the way from Israel to India. And what is special about these respirators that are export banned in Israel, because Israel is fighting now the second wave of this pandemic, which is even worse than the first wave. But still, this is the reflection of the strong friendship and commitment between our two countries. And this is exactly the time to thank again the Indian authorities that were there alongside Israel when we needed, when the pandemic just broke out. We needed to evacuate thousands of Israelis from all over India. And we got all the assistance and the help from the Indian authorities, from MEA, civil aviation, and all other authorities and state governments, and all these thousands of Israelis under full lockdown and closed skies got back safe home. They all got back safe home, and we are very thankful for that. India also provided us medicine and raw materials for medicine, protecting gears. And I think this is the reflection of a strong friendship that is based on strong values. So I can conclude with that under this pandemic, the friendship between Israel and India that was very close is getting even closer and stronger. And whatever we do now will shape the way of our collaboration in the future, and it looks very, very good. We are looking for more initiatives like this scientific project, working now on more technologies and more solutions. Since, as I said, this collaboration was very successful, we are now exploring new solutions for other challenges.
Good morning in the USA, friends in USA. Good afternoon, friends in Israel, and good evening, our friends in India. Ambassador Ron Malka, Honorable Consul General JAISWAL, Honorable CG of Israel NITZAN, Consul Wichensky, and dear friends all over the world. I'm Dr. Sudhir Parikh, Padma Shri recipient and Secretary General of Global Physician of Indian Origin, which represents 1.2 million Indian physicians outside India. At onset, I would like to thank my friend Nisim Rubin from AJC for inviting me and my colleague from the AAPI to speak. Nasim and I go a long way for last 20 years. We met first time, Nasim, in 2001 at Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi's home in Gandhinagar, where that time he was the CM of the Gujarat. Both of us know Honorable Prime Minister personally. He fondly calls Nasim India's Rashtradut, a goodwill ambassador to Jewish world. Since 2002, Nasim has had significant role to play through his work at AJC, building strong Jewish and India diaspora relationship, and advocate for close ties between the US, India, Israel in the strategy of economics, technology, and cultural areas. India recognized Israel in 1950, but it was only in 1991 that India upgraded to a full relationship with the State of Israel. Through those years, or even more so today, the Indian American community has been a passionate advocate of close ties between India and Israel, India and USA and Israel. Since the 60s, when many of us started coming to USA, we used to request every visiting Indian Prime Minister and foreign ministers to upgrade the relationship with the Israel, which will benefit India tremendously, especially in the area of health, agriculture. Through those years, the one congressman from the India caucus was late Jewish Congressman Steve Solars, our good friend, who used to join us for meeting with the Indian prime ministers and Indian foreign ministers who were visiting New York City. And agriculture, defense, and health cooperation have become the three pillars of the close ties between India and Israel. My home state of Gujarat was among the first state government who sent the delegation to Israel to learn Israel's ability to make desert into the green land through water management and conservation techniques. We in the Indian American community, medical community, would now like to help regular exchange of the expert in the health sector between India, Israel, and command both the Prime Minister, their scientific advisors, Ambassadors Ron Malka and Mr. Singla, of making this happen with the large Israel delegation setting up a 2 weeks COVID testing camp in Delhi. A few on this call might remember that in the aftermath of the massive Kutch earthquake in Gujarat, in my home state in 2001, myself and Nissim, we both had a privilege and honor to be a delegate in the President Bill Clinton's delegation to India. And Israel, even the smallest country of the world, had the largest mission of 300 doctors, nurses who stayed in the Kutch in the massive field hospital. They set up for all the months. And Nissim Rubin, who served there, one of the main local coordinator, described the mission to us, and where our friends, Israeli friends, brought every equipment from the Israel and request a local authority for regular supply of the diesel. Many surgeries were performed in that field hospital. Few babies were born during that time, and one of the babies' name we kept it as a Israela. Is a secretary of Global Association of the Physicians of the Indian Origin, which represents 1.2 million Indian physicians outside India. Both myself and American Association of the Physicians of the Indian Origin, President Dr. Sudhakar, advocate with our US government to foster the closer cooperation in the health and disaster management sectors between the US, India, and Israel. Before I invite our panelists, let me say that briefly that I'm our private practice in New York City. We are one of the investigators in the vaccine development, which is Moderna vaccine, which is in the third phase of the trial. And there are other vaccines from the AstraZeneca, Pfizer, as well as from the Johnson & Johnson. They all are in the third phase of the trial, and hopefully we'll get the vaccine before the end of the year. And that will change our challenges in the pandemic. Now, I would like to invite AAPI President Dr. Sudhakar Jonnalagadda and AAPI Mid-Atlantic Director Dr. Jagdish Gupta to make brief remark. We will then be glad to hear Ambassador Ron Malka's recommendation and suggestion. I convey our Indian American community's warm regards to Ambassador Ron Malka, Honorable Consul General RANDHIR JAISWAL, Honorable Consul General Israel NITZAN, and Consul Vilchinsky. Before I turn over to Dr. Sudhakar, I would like to ask one question to Dr. Ambassador Malka. That we know that Israel has set up 29 centers of the excellence across the India to help the Indian farmers to learn the best Israeli expertise in agriculture. So we hope and we wish that Israel will also establish such a center for excellence in health throughout the India, particularly in the rural area, to help the Indian population. So after our panel comments, I would like Ambassador Malka to address this our question. Then I have another second question to Dr. Sudhakar, that we in the past AAPI took the delegation to Israel, and I think we should continue AAPI delegation to Israel and also join the US, India, and Israel healthcare dialogues to make it more stronger.
Lord Ganapati was remembered on Ganesh Chaturthi at various places by devotees with traditional enthusiasm, joy, and worship was accorded to Lord Ganapati, who is seen as someone who help in removing all the obstacles. He is Vigna Karta as well as Vigna Harta. At Gayatri Chetna Center in New Jersey, the way Ganesh Utsav brought devotees together and they offered worship to the special form of Lord Ganpati. We have some glimpses from that event in this report.
Om Vishwani Deva Savitar Duridani Parashuva Yad Bhadram Tanna Ashuva Om Shanti 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 Sarvarishta Susanti Bhavatu Varada Veda Mata Prachodayantam Pavamani Dujanam Ayuh Pranam Prajam Pasum Kirtim Dravinam Brahmavachasam Mayam Dattva Vrajata Brahmalokam.
We are gathered here today at Gayatri Chetna Center by the blessings of Shantikund Hardbar, Dr. Saib and Gigi. Today we are gathered here to celebrate Ganesh Chaturthi. Ganesh is the remover of obstacles, and during these trying times in COVID-19, we are gathered here to show solidarity and to show respects to Ganesh Ji. Ganpati Bappa! Ganpati Bappa!
Hey, today we are celebrating Ganesh Utsav here at Piscataway. And we are celebrating Ganesh Utsav after a long time during the COVID-19. And Ganesh Bappa Moria. I wish you happy Ganesh Utsav.
Hi, this was Ganesh Utsav over here in Gayatri Chetna Center, New Jersey. I really enjoyed it, and as you can see, it is really amazing. People are enjoying that. Ganpati Bappa Moria.
સિનિયર સિટીઝન તરફથી બોલું છું અને અહીંયા ઘણા બધા સિનિયર્સ આવ્યા છે જો કોરોનાના ડરથી અમુક લોકો નથી આવ્યા પણ મોટા ભાગના અહીંયા આવ્યા છે અને ઘણો જ આનંદ થયો છે અમને લોકોને ઘણા લોકો મારી પાસે આવીને કહી ગયા આવો પ્રોગ્રામ કરતા રહો 15મી ઓગસ્ટે અમે ઉજવી હતી મહેશ જરીવાલા ઇન્ડો અમેરિકન સિનિયર એસોસિએશન ઓફ પિસ્કાટવે
Ganpati Bappa Moria, Ganpati Bappa Moria, Ganpati Bappa Moria, Ganpati Bappa Moria.
Time to say goodbye from today's Vision of Asia, but here is a moment to recollect with you that we are also connecting with you on social media. A very, very active and vibrant Facebook page of ITV Gold. If you are not a friend with us there, now is the time, and also subscribe YouTube channel of ITV Gold. Keep writing to us, events@itvgold.com. Thank you very much for being with us. Stay well, stay healthy, take care. This is Ashok Vyas.